The future looks bright for the people of Patriot City, with the bold heroes of Freedom Force always at the ready. Villains have been vanquished, dangers have been defeated, and evil all but eradicated. It is truly a time of peace and prosperity. But now an evil wind blows cold from the north, and a new menace casts its long shadows across Patriot City. And while the future is indeed bright, it is from a terrible past that dark danger now looms. Freedom Force must rise to the challenge of a new threat, reach unknown heights of heroism, and save history itself from one of the greatest evils our planet has ever endured.
You asked for this.
How's that sound, Eric?
Good.
I'm Ken Levine. I'm the general manager and creative director at Irrational Games. We're founded in 1997, and by myself and John Shea and Rob Fermier. And we all came from Looking Glass. The first Freedom Force, obviously there wasn't a lot of belief in the industry. We only had one title out at the time. There wasn't a sense that necessarily Irrational could do this. There was also a sense that there was a curse.
None can stand against me.
People were almost afraid of doing a game in the genre. So I think one of the great things about doing the first comic book game on the PC was that we had a fresh palette to work from. Nobody had done it. And I think we surprised a lot of people. We did very well. Our average score is around 92% across all the websites and all the magazines. The publisher we were working with back then, Crave NEA, didn't have the rights to continue it, so we had control over that. And we looked at the financial situation and our belief in the franchise, and we decided to invest our own money in terms of developing the sequel.
The Reich is glorious.
The plot of the new game, it's a year after the first Freedom Force, and Freedom Force has done such a good job on fighting crime that there's not a lot of crime left to fight. A bunch of people have joined the team, but the team has started to drift apart a little bit, and only the core heroes remain. And we use that to kick off the plot, which involves Freedom Force being sent to Castro's Cuba in 1963 to deal with some situation there with Cuban Missile Crisis. And things get much more complicated from there. And as the title says, the series of events leads somehow to Freedom Force heading back to the 1940s and taking on the Third Reich and the Axis supervillains of the Third Reich. Our perception is that in the ages we're dealing with in Freedom Force, the Third Reich, is the Silver Age, is the period of comics in the 60s. Wherein characters were evolving from being strictly paragons of virtue and perfect people into having some flaws and some warts on them. So there was sort of a charm to the naivete the characters have and how they spoke and how they related to each other. And it also relates well to how they looked and how the story was presented, suited itself really well to making a computer game. So we really had a fun time with the Silver Age in the first game. And now in the second game, we want to keep that Silver Age notion strongly with the characters and continue the characters, but we also want to play with a different time period. And the period we chose was the Golden Age, which was the period of the 1930s and 40s, which is really the birth of comic books. My primary input to the Freedom Force brand and creating the Freedom Force brand is that I've been a comic book reader my whole life. And I've spent an unfortunate amount of time thinking about comic books growing up. We first got into them when I was probably around 8 or 9 years old. Well, I wrote the script, which is the dialogue, and I worked with our concept artist, Rob Waters, to create all the characters and the look. Basically, we had to create a whole comic book world from scratch.
I'm Rob Waters. I do the conceptual character design. Here I'm going to show the making of one of the origin stories. Ken will, generally come up with a script and hand it off to me. I'll read through it, and then, basically just like a comic, I'll have to break that paragraph down into different panels. As I'm translating the script, I'll see a situation where I have a particular shot of example tombstone where I can possibly save myself some work actually and use that same illustration a couple times. In the game now, I think we've got like 6 origin stories and maybe 4 to 5 other in-game cutscenes. First the rough sketch, then transfer it onto the Bristol board and do a more refined version and ink it. And then I have to keep in mind what I want to be in the foreground, background, and midground. So this is the opening shot where you have the main characters being led down sort of a prison hallway. And ultimately, these guys are sort of gonna do a bit of parallaxing, where the characters sort of mildly cross in front of each other to create the illusion of volume. And he appears in the background, but of course everything's drawn separately. This character here, Nathan Graves, becomes Tombstone. So in the opening cutscene, the camera pans onto the back wall. And I just wanted to do a bit of foreshadowing here, so I sort of have a skull-like image. From this stage, then I scan it in and open it up in Photoshop and color it in. So of course they all come spinning up. This is the opening shot in the prison. I've got a bunch of annoying notes here. Then, as you can see, I want the camera to move in.
Although his heart still pumps at a regular rate, Nathan Graves is dead indeed.
And then it goes on to this other scene, just to give you a little bit of backstory.
Oh, Nathan, I hate it so when you leave in the morning. Patriot City is so big and dangerous.
It takes about 3 weeks from the point where I get the script to completion, where I finish the storyboards and send it off to Australia where they do the animation.
For where Nathan Graves once stood, only tombstone remains.
And then I actually had a lot of fun with the Golden Age cutscenes, because there was a whole different sort of aesthetic and treatment for those to make them sort of look older, as far as incorporating like the halftone process, and it was a lot of work. It's just incredible how much the sound really brings these to life, because without sound, you're almost thinking, wow, this is bad, but once Eric actually drops his sound in and everything, the music just helps it flow.
My name is Eric Brocious, and I'm the audio director here. My role here at Irrational is to just pretty much design how the game is going to sound, and that includes casting and recording and processing all of the speech files.
Eric Brocious is a slave driver. He makes us do hundreds of different takes. No, I'm just kidding.
Includes creating sound effects for pretty much everything in the game.
Have a bit of this.
For some characters, it's very easy, because sometimes someone from in-house will come right up to us and say, "Oh, I have an idea for this voice, and I think it would be good." Then we try it out.
Feel the serpent's tooth.
I haven't ever told this story, but I'll tell you guys for the first time. When we started doing the original Manbot voice, I started talking through my hand, sort of like this, just to kind of simulate, metallic voice might be. It was before we added any voice effects to the voices that we recorded, and it's not the most high-tech solution. But it worked. For some reason it worked, everyone liked it, so to keep it consistent, we kept it. In every single Manbot line I have done throughout all the games,
I've used my hand.
Until that day, the world shall only know me as the Manbot.
Freedom Force for example, has a lot of characters. There's like 100 total when you add up all the bit parts. So we go to a casting agency and we get them to give us a whole bunch of people.
Eric, our sound guy, holds auditions for each character. He and Ken talk about the kind of voice Ken imagines when he thinks of the character.
And then we usually pick 30 people that we use, and we try to pick people who are versatile, can do many different voices. We have some people that do 7 or 8 voices because they can disguise their voice.
When you're doing the voice like the narrator, it's a much different vocal. You've got to command your vocals a little bit differently. You do that for 20 minutes, it's a lot harder to kind of come off of that and run right into the man-bot sort of dialogue. Generally, we need to take a lot of breaks, and luckily we're here all the time, so anytime Eric needs anything new, we can just sort of give it to him when he needs it.
And then between myself and Ken and John over in Australia, we kind of pick who we think we're going to go with.
For minor characters, he often uses people like me, where he kind of knows my voice from having worked with me in the past, and so he's heard me make gorilla noises, for instance, so he knew I could probably do a decent killerilla.
Killerilla, hungry!
You're concentrating on tiny little details that we think are really important, which are probably really meaningless in the big picture. And then every once in a while, sometimes late at night, you'll be playing the game or running through, and all of a sudden you'll kind of be playing it for the first time as a player. And then you kind of get excited about it because all the little bits that you've been working on and that other people have been working on, you see kind of all come together.
My name is Keith Smith. I do QA and miscellaneous tasks around the office, and I do the voice of Quetzalcoatl.
My wrath is ancient.
Ken Levine gets in the mix and everybody just has a little power lunch and makes it all happen.
With righteous anger. My light will burn with righteous anger.
That's good. I like the over-the-top one.
Cool.
You want to feel the serpent's tooth really over the top.
Okay.
My name is Alex Kay. I'm one of the lead designers on Freedom Force versus the Third Reich.
Oh, for a muse of fire!
I play 2 different characters, the Bard.
Enter the Bard!
Enter the Bard!
And Mr. Mechanical.
Fall before the might of Mr. Mechanical!
These are over-the-top, hammy characters, and it's a great pleasure to indulge.
I ended up doing Mentor just because in designing the characters and then just, of course you sort of get into their head a little bit, and at least for me it was a combination of Ted Knight and Don Pardo, and I just sort of, mixed those together and came up with Mentor.
You are an open book to me.
You are an open book to me.
A lot more banter in this game between the characters. We had to, I had to write, because we have so many characters now, so many heroes, so many villains, one of the great things about the game is we never know what characters people are going to take on what missions. That's one of the strengths of the game. So I had to write variations of dialogue for every character on all these lines. I think the thing I'm most proud of is that people get it. The game has got a unique tone. There's really nothing like it out there. That's right. I think as a medium, we're not just a medium run by 11-year-old, 12-year-old boys. Not that there's anything wrong with gamers who are 11 or 12 years old, but I think gamers have a broader sense of aesthetic and design than marketing people give them credit for sometimes. And again, there's nothing wrong with marketing people, but sometimes I think that they look at a demographic of we got to make it hip, we got to make it cool, we got to make it modern, we got to make it this, we got to make it that, and you generally, the hits and the surprises come from places you don't expect.
Ignore my genius, feel my power!
I think I can safely say there is no other franchise or characters as loved by their creators as Freedom Force. Is Freedom Force going to be back to fight another mission? I think it's a pretty safe bet they will be.
And that is the end. Really. There's no more. Stop watching me and go play Freedom Force. Do you think the world is going to save itself?